Today, we will be talking about football stars who died in some of the most tragic and unexpected ways. Number 1, Diogo Jota, the Liverpool forward, who died alongside his younger brother only days after celebrating his wedding. By the summer of 2025, Diogo Jota seemed to be entering one of the happiest and most successful periods of his life. He had established himself as a respected forward for Liverpool, represented Portugal at the highest level, helped his club win major trophies, and recently married his longtime partner, Ruta Cardoso, with whom he shared 3 children. He was only 28 years old, still in the prime of his career, and preparing to return to England for another season when a journey through northwestern Spain ended the lives of both him and his younger brother. Jota was born on December 4th, 1996, in Portugal. His rise through football had been steady rather than immediate. He began making his name at Paços de Ferreira, where his movement, speed, and finishing ability drew attention from larger clubs. Atletico Madrid signed him, but he never established himself in the Spanish club's senior team. Instead, loan spells with Porto and Wolverhampton Wanderers gave him the opportunity to prove himself. At Wolves, Jota helped the club earn promotion to the Premier League, and then showed that he could continue scoring against stronger opposition in England's top division. Liverpool signed him in 2020. He entered a squad that already had Mohamed Salah, Sadio Mane, and Roberto Firmino, but he quickly created a role for himself. Jota could operate through the middle or from either side, and he had an unusual ability to appear in dangerous positions just before the ball arrived. He was not the largest forward, but he was effective in the air, comfortable with either foot, and prepared to press defenders whenever Liverpool lost possession. Injuries disrupted parts of his career, yet he repeatedly returned and scored important goals. His international career also developed steadily. Jota became a regular member of the Portuguese national team and played beside figures such as Cristiano Ronaldo, Bruno Fernandes, and Bernardo Silva. A serious injury prevented him from appearing at the 2022 World Cup, but he remained part of Portugal's plans and continued representing the country afterward. By 2025, his life appeared settled. Liverpool had won another league title, his family was growing, and he had recently celebrated his marriage. Shortly before his death, Jota reportedly underwent a medical procedure and was advised not to travel by air. Because of that, he planned to cross Spain by road and take a ferry from Santander to England. His younger brother, Andrés Silva, accompanied him. André was also a professional footballer and had played for clubs in Portugal. What should have been a simple journey between countries became a family tragedy before the brothers reached their destination. During the early hours of July 3, 2025, their vehicle was traveling along the A52 motorway near Cernadilla in the Spanish province of Zamora. Investigators examined whether a tire may have failed while the car was overtaking another vehicle. The Lamborghini suddenly left the road, overturned, and caught fire. The flames spread rapidly through the wreckage and into vegetation beside the highway. Other motorists contacted emergency services, but when firefighters arrived, the vehicle was already consumed by fire. Both brothers died at the scene. Diogo was 28, while André was 25. The news spread quickly through Portugal and England, leaving teammates and supporters struggling to accept that a player who had recently celebrated a championship and wedding was suddenly gone. Liverpool supporters gathered outside Anfield and left flowers, scarves, shirts, and photographs. Cristiano Ronaldo expressed disbelief and offered condolences to the family, while clubs across Europe held tributes. The loss extended far beyond football. Jota's parents lost 2 sons in the same accident. His wife lost her husband only days after their wedding celebration, and 3 children lost their father. His final weeks had contained many of the moments people normally associate with a new beginning. He had celebrated professional success, committed himself to his longtime partner, and prepared to return to work. Instead, his life ended beside his brother on a dark motorway before pre-season training could begin. Number 2, Andrés Escobar, the Colombian defender, murdered after one mistake during the World Cup. Andrés Escobar was known for being calm, disciplined, and respectful, qualities that separated him from the violence and instability surrounding Colombian football during the late 1980s and early 1990s. He was nicknamed the Gentleman of Football because he rarely behaved aggressively and tried to represent his country with dignity. Yet his name became connected to one of the darkest incidents in the sport after an own goal at the 1994 World Cup was followed by his murder in Medellin. Escobar was born in 1967 and developed into an intelligent central defender for Atlético Nacional. Rather than relying on reckless challenges, he read the game carefully and positioned himself before danger developed. He helped Atlético Nacional win the Copa Libertadores in 1989 and became a regular member of the Colombian national team during a period when the country produced one of its most talented squads. Colombia entered the 1994 World Cup with enormous expectations. The team had defeated Argentina 5-0 in Buenos Aires during qualification, a result that made international observers view Colombia as a possible contender for the trophy. The squad included Carlos Valderrama, Freddy Rincon, and Faustino Asprilla, and supporters at home believed this generation could change the country's football history. The pressure surrounding the team, however, was not purely sporting. Powerful criminal organizations had invested money in Colombian clubs and illegal gambling. Large bets were placed on the national team, meaning every result carried financial consequences for dangerous people. Players received threats, and the squad arrived at the World Cup carrying expectations that extended far beyond normal national pride. Colombia lost its opening match to Romania and then faced the United States in a game it desperately needed to win. During the first half, American player John Harkes sent a low cross toward the penalty area. Escobar stretched out his leg to intercept it before it reached an attacker, but the ball struck him, changed direction, and rolled beyond goalkeeper Oscar Cordoba. It was the kind of accidental own goal that can happen to any defender. Escobar had tried to prevent a scoring opportunity, but his attempted clearance gave the United States the lead. Colombia eventually lost 2-1. Although the team later defeated Switzerland, it was eliminated from the tournament much earlier than expected. Escobar returned to Colombia and wrote about the defeat, accepting responsibility for the mistake, while asking supporters to maintain perspective. He understood the disappointment, but believed life had to continue. Friends reportedly advised him to remain cautious because of the angry reactions surrounding the team, yet Escobar did not believe he should hide. During the early hours of July 2, 1994, he left a nightclub in Medellin and became involved in an argument with several men who mocked him over the own goal. Escobar attempted to explain that it had been an honest mistake. One of the men then pulled out a gun and shot him repeatedly. Witnesses later said the attacker shouted "Goal" as the bullets were fired, turning a football commentator's celebration into a cruel reference to Escobar's death. He was rushed to a hospital, but could not be saved. Andrés Escobar died at 27 years old, only 10 days after the own goal against the United States. His murder shocked the football world and revealed how deeply crime and gambling had entered the sport in Colombia. Tens of thousands of people attended his funeral, and many who had previously criticized the team now mourned the defender. The own goal remained the event most commonly connected to his name, but it was not the cause of his death. Escobar died because armed criminals believed a player should be punished for the outcome of a match. He had spent his career representing control and sportsmanship, yet he was killed in a culture where football results had become connected to money, threats, and violence. Number 3, Marc-Vivien Foé, the Cameroon midfielder whose heart stopped during an international semifinal. Marc-Vivien Foé was a physically powerful midfielder who had competed for clubs in France and England and represented Cameroon at 2 World Cups. Nothing about his appearance suggested that his body was close to failure. He was only 28, had played professional football for years, and was in the middle of an international tournament when a hidden heart condition caused him to collapse without warning. Foé was born in Yaoundé, Cameroon, in 1975. He developed into a midfielder who could win possession, protect the defense, and move forward when needed. He helped Lens win the French League before playing for West Ham United, Lyon, and Manchester City. His strength and work rate made him valuable to every team he represented, while his experience made him an important member of the Cameroon national side. In June 2003, Cameroon participated in the FIFA Confederations Cup in France. The team advanced to a semi-final against Colombia at the Stade de Gerland in Lyon, a ground Foé knew well from his time with the French club. Cameroon took the lead, and Foé continued working across midfield as the match entered its later stages. During the second half, he collapsed near the center circle. No opponent had tackled him, and there had been no collision. He simply fell to the grass while play continued around him. The referee stopped the match as players signaled urgently for medical assistance. Medical staff reached Foé and discovered that he was no longer responding. They attempted to revive him on the field and continued treatment after carrying him away. Doctors worked for an extended period, but his heart could not be restarted. Marc-Vivien Foé, was pronounced dead before the match had fully disappeared from television screens. An examination revealed hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a condition that causes part of the heart muscle to become abnormally thick. The condition can disrupt blood flow and trigger fatal heart rhythms. Some people experience chest pain, dizziness, or shortness of breath, but others have few signs before sudden cardiac arrest occurs. Foé had passed through years of professional football without the condition preventing him from playing. He had trained, traveled, and competed internationally while carrying a danger that neither he nor many of the people around him fully understood. His fitness could not protect him, because the problem came from the organ supporting every movement he made. Cameroon won the semifinal, but there was no celebration. Players cried, prayed, and gathered around a photograph of their teammate. The tournament continued, and Cameroon faced France in the final, where both teams paid tribute to Foé. Thierry Henry and other players pointed toward the sky after the match, while Foé's image was carried onto the field. Manchester City later retired his number 23 shirt. His death also encouraged greater discussion about cardiac screening and the availability of emergency equipment at football grounds. Although testing cannot identify every risk, Foé's collapse became part of the effort to improve how quickly football responds when a player suffers cardiac arrest. Number 4. Emiliano Sala, the striker whose aircraft disappeared while he was traveling to join his new club. Emiliano Sala had spent years working through French football before Cardiff City offered him the biggest move of his career. The Welsh club agreed to pay a record transfer fee for the Argentine striker in January 2019, hoping his goals would help them remain in the Premier League. Sala traveled to Cardiff, signed his contract, met members of the squad, and posed with the club's shirt. He then returned briefly to Nantes to collect his belongings and say goodbye. He never completed the journey back. Sala was born in Argentina in 1990, but moved to Europe as a young player. He spent time on loan at several clubs before establishing himself with Nantes. He was not considered one of football's glamorous stars, but he was respected as a determined striker who challenged defenders and fought for opportunities inside the penalty area. His goals attracted Cardiff, and the transfer represented financial security and the chance to compete in one of the world's most watched leagues. On January 21, 2019, Sala boarded a Piper Malibu aircraft at Nantes Atlantique Airport. The plane was being flown by David Ibbotson and was scheduled to cross the English Channel before landing in Cardiff. Questions later emerged about how the flight had been arranged, whether it should have been classified as a commercial journey, and whether the pilot had the correct qualifications. The flight took place at night in difficult weather. While in the air, Sala recorded a voice message to friends in Argentina. He said the aircraft appeared to be falling apart and admitted that he was becoming frightened. He tried to joke about the situation, but the message later revealed that he understood the journey was not proceeding normally. Air traffic controllers lost contact with the plane near the Channel Islands. A search began across the English Channel, using aircraft, boats, and rescue crews. After several days without finding the wreckage, authorities suspended the official operation because the chance of survival had become extremely small. Sala's family refused to stop searching. Footballers and supporters donated money for a privately funded operation, and investigators eventually located the aircraft on the seabed. Sala's body was recovered from the wreckage, but Ibbotson's remains were never found. Tests showed that Sala had been exposed to a dangerous level of carbon monoxide before the crash. The gas may have entered the cabin and affected both men, causing dizziness, confusion, or unconsciousness. Investigators also determined that Ibbotson was not licensed to conduct the flight commercially and was not qualified to fly under all the conditions he encountered. The tragedy was followed by a dispute between Cardiff City and Nantes over the transfer payment. Legal arguments continued over whether the move had been fully completed and which club was responsible for paying or receiving the money. For Sala's family, the dispute added another painful chapter to a death that had already exposed serious failures in the organization of his flight. He had traveled to Wales as Cardiff's record signing, but died before he could play a match, train regularly with the squad, or appear before the supporters who had welcomed him. The largest opportunity of his career ended in a small aircraft above the English Channel. Number 5. Samuel Okwaraji, the Nigerian midfielder who collapsed while representing his country. Samuel Okwaraji combined professional football with an academic career that made him unusual among players of his generation. He studied law, developed a career in Europe, and remained strongly committed to representing Nigeria. On August 12, 1989, that commitment placed him inside a packed stadium in Lagos for a World Cup qualifier against Angola. Before the match ended, Okwaraji collapsed on the pitch and died from a heart condition that had not prevented him from playing until that day. Born in 1964, Okwaraji moved to Europe and studied while pursuing football. He played in several countries and earned a reputation as an energetic midfielder capable of running for long periods. He represented Nigeria at the 1988 Africa Cup of Nations and the Olympic Games, and was considered an important part of the team attempting to qualify for the 1990 World Cup. The match against Angola attracted a huge crowd to the national stadium. Nigeria needed a positive result, and the atmosphere became increasingly tense as the team protected a narrow lead. Okwaraji had spent much of the match running through midfield and helping Nigeria maintain control. With around 10 minutes remaining, his movement suddenly became unsteady. He slowed near the halfway line, staggered, and fell face first onto the turf. There had been no collision and no foul. Players from both teams immediately signaled for medical help. Medical workers rushed onto the field and began CPR. Teammates gathered nearby, some kneeling in prayer while others watched in silence. The crowd, which had been loud throughout the match, became quiet as the seriousness of the situation became clear. Okwaraji showed no signs of recovery and was pronounced dead before reaching the hospital. He was 25 years old. Medical reports later connected his death to an enlarged heart and dangerously high blood pressure, conditions that placed enormous stress on his cardiovascular system during competition. His death devastated Nigerian football. Okwaraji was remembered not only as a talented player, but as someone who had repeatedly made himself available to the national team. Reports described disagreements with club officials over his international duties, yet he continued traveling to represent Nigeria. Like Foé, Okwaraji looked physically capable of handling the demands of professional football. His collapse demonstrated that visible fitness does not always reveal what is happening inside the heart. The match continued and Nigeria won, but the result became permanently connected to the death of the midfielder, who had fallen only minutes before the final whistle. Number 6. Gaetano Scirea, the Italian World Cup champion, killed in a burning car during a scouting trip. Gaetano Scirea spent his playing career facing some of football's most dangerous attackers, yet he became known for calmness rather than aggression. He rarely made reckless challenges and completed his career without receiving a red card. He helped Italy win the 1982 World Cup and became one of Juventus's most respected defenders. After retiring, he remained with the club as a scout, and it was during one of those assignments that his life ended. Scirea was born in 1953 and joined Juventus in the 1970s. He became a central part of the club's defense and won numerous domestic and European trophies. With Italy, he played in 3 World Cups and was part of the team that defeated West Germany in the 1982 final. His ability to defend cleanly and move the ball out from the back made him an example for later generations. After leaving the pitch, Scirea began observing opponents for Juventus. In September 1989, the club sent him to Poland to study Górnik Zabrze before an upcoming UEFA Cup match. The assignment required him to watch the Polish side, gather information, and return with a report. On September 3rd, Scirea was traveling in a Fiat with several other people near the village of Babsk. The vehicle moved into the path of an oncoming truck, and the two collided head-on. The crash alone was serious, but several containers of gasoline were reportedly being carried in the car because of fuel shortages in Poland. The impact ruptured the containers, and the spilled gasoline ignited. Flames moved through the vehicle almost instantly, making it impossible for rescuers to reach everyone inside. Scirea and 2 other passengers were killed. He was 36 years old. The news stunned Italy. Scirea had only recently retired and appeared ready to build a long career away from playing. Instead, he died while completing a routine task for the club he had represented for most of his professional life. Juventus and its supporters continued honoring him through memorials, stadium sections, and awards connected to sportsmanship. His death was particularly difficult because the assignment carried no obvious danger. He was not competing, performing a stunt, or traveling at extreme speed for entertainment. He was sitting in a car on his way to observe another football team when fuel inside the vehicle turned a collision into a fatal fire. Number 7. José Luis Cuciuffo, the Argentine World Cup winner, killed when a shotgun discharged during a hunting trip. José Luis Cuciuffo was part of the Argentina squad that won the 1986 World Cup in Mexico. He played in defense behind Diego Maradona and helped the team survive difficult matches before defeating West Germany in the final. Although he never received the same international fame as Maradona, his role contributed to one of Argentina's greatest sporting achievements. Cuciuffo was born in Córdoba in 1961 and played for clubs including Vélez Sarsfield and Boca Juniors. He also spent time in France and developed a reputation as a physically strong defender. After retiring, he lived a quieter life, away from the attention surrounding the national team's most famous players. On December 11, 2004, Cuciuffo traveled on a hunting trip near Bahia San Blas in Argentina. He and his companions moved through rough terrain while carrying firearms. During the journey, a shotgun discharged unexpectedly. Early reports created confusion about whether another hunter had fired the shot, but later accounts indicated that Cuciuffo's own weapon discharged after movement in or around the vehicle. The shot struck him in the abdomen. His companions attempted to control the bleeding and sought medical help. Cuciuffo was transported for treatment, but the projectile had caused severe internal damage. He died later that day at 43 years old. He became the first member of Argentina's 1986 World Cup winning squad to die. Former teammates and supporters remembered the defender who had helped the country lift the trophy 18 years earlier. The accident contained no mystery or planned violence. A loaded weapon moved, fired at close range, and caused injuries doctors could not repair. Cuciuffo had spent years placing himself between attackers and the goal, yet his life ended during a recreational trip far from a football stadium. Their careers remain preserved through recordings, photographs, trophies, and the supporters who watched them. Their deaths remain warnings about hidden illness, unsafe travel, violence, firearms, and the speed with which an ordinary day can become a tragedy.